Presented with little to no interruption, Carol's Last Christmas has been an expensive endeavor. If you enjoy our work, please consider making a donation to help. Visit patreon.com/Carol's Last Christmas.
We have chosen to omit names or use sound effects in this production because the individuals discussed have not been formally arrested, charged, or accused of wrongdoing in the death of Carol Rofstad. The Normal Police Department declined to participate in this podcast.
After nearly 15 months on pause, I'd like to welcome you all back to Carol's Last Christmas, our continuing investigation of the nearly 50-year-old murder of Carol Rofstad. I'm Demetria Kalodimos. For new listeners, we hope you'll take the full journey from the beginning at Chapter 1. But not to worry, there is a lot to digest, so we'll be recapping some previous episodes. And rest assured, there is plenty of new information to share with our loyal audience. The longtime listeners who have stuck with us for nearly 3 years now, Carol's friends, family, even total strangers who can't seem to understand why she died so young, and why it's taken half a century to get serious about solving this crime. The Genuine Human team has always been committed to transparency, and here's the reason behind our hiatus. In March of 2023, the Normal Police Department requested that we not release any new reporting, to give their newly dedicated detectives time to follow some of the leads we had investigated and shared. And we took that as an encouraging sign. George Seibel did his best to remain patient on the sidelines.
Hey, Dee, sorry I missed your call. It's George with a couple of thoughts about how I think maybe would be good to proceed. In a nutshell, two things come to mind right away. I think that if we proceed, that we need to give them 7 days notice by registered mail or email, indicating that we have given them information and we will promise feedback and updates, and following up with our information sources. None of those people were contacted, and if things don't change, we're going to proceed with our investigation exactly where we left off, including contacting living suspects. So anyway, talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
So we're here today to talk about the murder of Carol Rofstad, and I want to discuss the case first a little bit.
My co-producer, Ali Daskalopoulos, with help from another volunteer investigator, Nicole Roach, presented several public forums on the case at libraries across central Illinois.
And I also want to leave plenty of time for questions at the end, so...
That led to some new connections and potential leads.
I think suspect one called me.
Really?
He said he was working at Holiday Inn. Do you know anything about that? Like the
I don't think we've...
But he said the police were really bothering him about this murder and about attacking girls. They were all over him. He was innocent. And all this stuff.
Yeah.
Did you know him? I knew him from, I knew what he looked like, but I didn't know him. But back then you could look up phone numbers.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, the phone books still were a thing, you know.
It was like 10 o'clock at night at my parents' house.
Early this year, we filed an open records request for information on police follow-up activity, including taxpayer-funded travel out of state. Responding with a somewhat unusual affidavit, the assistant chief wrote, "The disclosure of the supplemental reports and travel documents would be expected to obstruct and interfere with the ongoing criminal investigation." Investigators are still testing evidence, interviewing witnesses, and attempting to identify additional witnesses and potential suspects.
Working for you. This is the 23 News Update at 10.
Then, in spring of 2024, a stunning development.
The town of Normal has reached an agreement calling for nearly $5.5 million settlement in the Alan Beeman wrongful conviction lawsuit.
The government of Normal, Illinois decided to settle a case brought by a man wrongfully convicted and jailed for a murder he didn't commit.
Beeman sued the town and 3 retired officers, alleging they framed him in the 1993 death of his ex-girlfriend, Jennifer Lockmiller.
She was strangled with a cord and stabbed with scissors at her apartment on North Main Street. 2 years later, Beeman was convicted and sentenced to 50 years in prison. He served 13 before the Illinois Supreme Court overturned the conviction, and former Governor Pat Quinn pardoned him.
The suit claimed police failed to consider other potential suspects who had dated Lockmiller. The town council will consider the settlement on Monday.
The town of Normal admits no wrongdoing.
Will this multi-million-dollar settlement put a permanent chill on cold cases like Carol's? Will there be a reluctance to charge anyone without definitive physical evidence?
One of the things that I learned real early in my investigative career is not to fall in love with a theory and then marry it. When you make up your mind about something, that something is right or something is good, you overestimate the good parts and you ignore the bad parts. The one thing I do remember from what little I read about that case was the fact that if they had really thought about it, it would have all been impossible for him to have traveled back and forth and committed that crime in between. There just wasn't time for it.
But it offers an incredible contrast to our case, where there's such a reluctance to charge.
Well, I don't know what to think about that anymore. Reluctance to charge would indicate that that maybe they really think they don't have enough, but it's an irrevocable fact that it was a year ago March that they asked us to lay off and give them a chance, and that was a long time ago. It's 13 months later, and they simply haven't done it.
From Genuine Human Productions, this is Carol's Last Christmas. Chapter 14. Let's get back in the game.
My blood is 100 proof. Let God have mercy on you. 'Cause you best go. I'm a criminal, so despicable. Done me unthinkable. And then it feels good to be a criminal. So despicable, done me unthinkable. And then it feels good.
Hey, Demetria, it's George. It's 4:30 on Saturday, and I just got a telephone call about exactly 1 hour ago from, and he started out saying, are your friends still trying to pin a murder on me I didn't do, or words to that effect? And I said, if you look at my history and my reputation, you would know that all I want to do is get to the bottom of this, and I want to know the truth. And I've never pointed towards solving the crime by placing it upon you. So I said, if you'd like me to explain some reasons that you were and are a prime suspect, I went through all the circumstantial things. I told him that we had 2 different reports, that Carol had humiliated him in front of a group of people around the sorority, and that apparently enraged him. He denied ever knowing Carol at that point, ever.
And then I said, well, there were also a couple of phone calls immediately after the crime, and saying that she was attacked and almost killed, and that the phone calls were attributed to you. And then a second call was made immediately after she died. And according to the police, only the person who made the phone calls could have known those things. And he said, well, I didn't do that either. You will not believe what he did say. He put himself on the fucking crime scene.
What?
He put himself on the crime scene. This is the story. On the night that she was attacked, and he didn't know her at that time, he was across the street at another young woman's house, and they were at the hand-holding stage in a friendship or heading toward romantic or whatever, and that they broke up. And so he started walking away from her house, and I'm not 100% sure if he was if it was a sorority house or if it was like a single family home or whatever. I didn't want to break in to ask unimportant specifics, but he said that he kind of cut diagonally across the street, and that there was a pretty blonde-haired girl standing on the sidewalk, and he almost bumped into her, and she said, "Hi, how are you?" And he said, "Fine, thank you." And he looked at her and kept on walking. And then he said that after the crime, and he saw pictures and whatever else, that he realized that had been Carol. So he puts himself there between 8:30 and 9 o'clock on the night that she was attacked. So if the police have been praying for something for 47 years, they just fucking got it.
And he denies making the phone calls?
He denies ever having laid eyes on her. He denies that she ever humiliated him on 2 different occasions around sorority people. He denies the phone calls. He denies any involvement with that. According to him, he didn't know Carol Rofstad existed until he saw her the night when she was probably minutes away from being killed, but he didn't do it. And then he realized after the fact that he had been speaking to Carol. That's the whole thing. Everything else was peripheral stuff. He put himself on the crime scene. And there is one other thing. I asked him if he knew. The answer was no. I asked him if he knew. He said no. I said, well, we were told that you knew both those guys from the Red Lion by people who worked there as bouncers. And he said, well, it's been a long time. I'm not sure about any of that. But the name, I said, well, did you know a blonde-haired guy named? And he said, that sounds very familiar, but I can't be sure. And then I asked him another question. I said, did you ever know a guy who was dating a woman from the Grand Cafe? And he said, yeah. He said, I had a female roommate who was a hostess at the Grand Cafe. So he puts himself somewhere where he would have logically known.
Then George brought up another name, a guy who was enlisted by to check at the cellar bar for a certain young blonde woman.
I said also that we have been told that you enlisted two other guys, to go with you to the cellar to look in on a blonde-haired woman who either was there or worked there, and he kind of hesitated with that, and I didn't get a straight answer. But I just wanted him to talk at that point, so I didn't call him on it.
Right.
Because to me it was a lesser point, a lesser part of the whole thing. But anyway, I have a date to call him tomorrow at 2:00 our time, noon, for us to do volume 2. He really doesn't like you.
Why? What did he say?
And he doesn't like Allie. And he will never talk to either of you. And I said, don't worry about that, man. I'm your guy. And he said, yeah. And I told him, I said, if you didn't do this, I'm probably your best bet to vindicate you after 48 years.
Right.
And he said, I can see that. So anyway, we're besties.
Almost immediately, George Seibel telephoned Normal Police.
We need to involve the chief of detectives.
Okay.
Well, their prime suspect of 47 or 48 years just told me that he was on the scene.
Yeah. Hey, did he ever say he was polygraphed?
I asked him that. He said he didn't remember.
Oh, come on.
But he did.
The guy's a steel trap.
I'm just telling
I know
what he said.
I know.
But he did say that when he was working in southern Indiana, that a police detective went there to talk to him, and I don't remember the name of the place, but he was working at some tech place in southern Indiana, and that he said, I'm trying to remember the guy's name that came to see me, but the security people threw him out of the place. And I said, would you know the name if you heard it? And he said, yeah. I said, could it have been Dan Sadler? And he said, that's exactly who it was.
Dan Sadler, the detective who oversaw the case longer than anyone else. He had conferred with George several times during our investigation. Sadler died in 2023.
And then I asked him whether he's been contacted recently by the police, and he said he has not been contacted them since 1978. By them since 1978.
Unbelievable. Has he listened?
Yeah, and he was talking. Oh, he and I have a bet. He was swearing up and down that our friend's name was used in the podcast productions, and I said, you may have related something you heard to somebody that you know, but I said, I'm sure that nobody's name was used, and he said, I know it was.
No.
I said, well, I'll bet you a cheeseburger and a milkshake on that one, brother.
No, absolutely. You know that there wasn't a single name used anywhere.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's the summation. But you talk about absolute freaking miracles.
What did he sound like? What was your impression of him?
Well spoken. Sounds like a slightly older guy, like I am, and he only lost his temper once and raised his voice, and that was that he started telling me this long, drawn out frickin' story. And he said that he could not have wielded a railroad tie because he lost the use of his right hand, and that wasn't, by the way, the folklore story was that he got shot in Nam, or injured in Nam. That isn't what he said happened. He said he put his hand through a window when he was a sophomore at ISU, and he lost 90% of the use of his wrist, and so he couldn't possibly have wielded a railroad tie. And I said, well, actually, our information is that it was a much smaller wooden object than a railroad tie. I think that what I'm sure I really need to do at this point is to find a live person at the Normal Police Department. It's my civic freaking duty. I know I don't have to say this to you or Ellie, but since this clown put himself at the scene of a 48-year-old murder to a civilian, I think this got to stay between you and me.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and nothing to anyone else.
No.
Particularly until I get a hold of whoever wants to talk to me about this at the police station.
Yeah, no question. I would also like to know about the 74 attack and the subsequent attacks. I know you'll go there eventually. But
well, he claims that he claims, he never saw her before that day. I also did mention, I'm sorry that I got ahead of myself. When I started talking to him about the circumstantial things, I started with the 74 home invasion and Carol's broken nose and the combat boots and everything. And I told him that everybody said that's how he dressed, and he denied that. So he said he never wore khakis and he never wore combat boots.
Oh my God.
But that's all immaterial. He put himself on the fucking crime scene.
Yeah. On the night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I should try to reach someone.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going out to the country. We're hanging out I just finished working all day, but this is unreal.
Well, so maybe there is a God after all, huh?
I never doubted it. You may be wondering what Normal Police did with George's urgent shared information.
This is 48 freaking years later. The guy that everybody has reason to think did it put himself right there on the spot. Sit him down in the room, get him a bottle of water, advise him of his rights. And in my world, in Cook County, Illinois, that guy gets charged.
Next time on Carol's Last Christmas, we've heard from his daughter.
I'm for sure his biological daughter. I mean, you could see the resemblance. I don't want to say did it.
We've heard from a man who said he would easily be capable of killing.
Yes, I think so, because I know that when they lived in Florida, I know he run drugs, like from Miami back then.
We heard about his gruesome plan to allegedly get rid of someone who knew too much.
Why don't you do me a favor? I said, what's that? I'm going to cut Tom up in little pieces, put in that big old cooler. I just want you to carry him out here for me.
Now we speak face to face with his ex-wife.
Were you surprised when the cops came today?
Yeah, I was. Well, I knew what they were here for. When they said detectives, I was like, oh, here we go again. My husband's been gone 22 years. He got interviewed for a murder case because 2 girls called in on him and said, oh, that looks like, and that picture of the stocking cap and the hat does look like him. Yeah. It looks like my husband.
I'm a criminal, so despicable, done the unthinkable, and then it feels good to be a criminal, so despicable, done the unthinkable. feels good.
Carol's Last Christmas is a genuine human production, reported from interviews with friends, family, and experts, and based on official records obtained through the Freedom of Information Act. Lead investigator George Seibel, Chicago Police Department, retired. Investigator and co-producer Alexandra Duskalopoulos. Investigator, writer, and narrator Demetria Kaladimos. Voiceover recreation Justin Holder. Audio mastering and consultation by Paul Gibson. Music provided rights-free by Artlist, Blue Dot Sessions, Motion Array, and Storyblocks. Original music by Verlin Thompson. Graphics by Orlando Rodriguez and Thalia Kaladimos. Website and promotional material, Thalia Kaladimos and Jim Champus. Our theme song is Criminal by Binge Heard, featuring Katrina Stone, courtesy of Artlist. Carol's Last Christmas is distributed by Radio Misfits. Our sincere thanks to the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press for pre-publication review, and to those who knew and loved Carol and generously shared their stories.